Part two of the crossover between Locked On Nationals and Locked On Padres. I am Josh Neighbors. It is Javier Reyes who is with me. So we just talked about some conversations, Soto versus Tatis, Trey Turner versus Tatis, some hotly contested some conversation. Good conversation, though.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask you, though, because this is something that this is the common struggle right now. The lockout. I ask everybody about this, and I know people hate about hearing it. But, Javi, I keep a counter. It's one of my bookmarks. I'll go check it out right now. About the days until pitchers and catchers report.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you also keep up with? Are you familiar with the counter?
I do not.
So you
I'm not going to lie. I do not.
There's a springtrainingcountdown.com is where it's at. 53 days, 5 hours, 3 minutes, 30, 29, 28 seconds. You get the idea. Until pitchers and catchers report. I track that number in relation to the number of days the lockout's been going on. All right?
Okay.
We're at 54 until spring training right now. Pitchers and catchers report. We are at 22/21, depending on how your mathematic calendar and your mind works. Let's just say it's 3 weeks because December 1st when it happens. Today is the 22nd when we're recording this. As these numbers get closer, does your anxiety grow further? Is my question.
Look, it's just with all this stuff, it's very like everyone keeps telling me like, dude, they're gonna get it figured out by the time the regular season happens. And like I get why people think that. There's a lot of reason to believe that. They don't want to do all this, and they gotta, they just went through 2020. You gotta get back and get the games in. There's been some positive momentum with baseball, believe it or not. Viewership went up with certain games. I think the World Series actually did pretty well this year too, which was nice considering it would have been precipitously just declining like every single year. So that was nice. The last thing they'd want to do would be spring training comes and then there's just no baseball. You know what I mean? They don't have to compete with the footballs and you do with basketball a little bit, but by then nobody really. I don't think people watch basketball and by the time baseball starts. That's been my theory for a while. Like I don't think people really they watch like the TNT marquee games. Like I know that this is a dumb conspiracy theory.
It's about to start.
I'm talking about like before then though. You know what I mean? Like before the playoffs.
Baseball has a nice buffer before playoffs.
Yes. It's like that little buffer.
It's like 3 or 4 weeks normally.
Yeah. Because then everyone's like, all right, I get it. The Suns won for the 14th time. Like, I don't need to see. Like, I get it. Can we get to the main event? So that's one thing. But I always respond to all that stuff and I say, yeah, but what has baseball shown us over... I mean, you could argue ever. But especially since you and I have been covering it, like,
yes,
they never do the right thing.
Great point.
They are, I've said this comp before, it is the nerdiest thing you will ever hear me say. They are the Nintendo of all the 3 major sports. What I mean by that is they, for oftentimes, act like they're still in first place. Hey, we're releasing the Nintendo 64 Classic, or the NES Classic, I should say. Mario Bros, all that stuff. It's a little console. Everyone's excited to replay it again. We made 100 of them for the entire world. And then they sell out. It's this artificial BS. They act like they're in first. Baseball, out of all the sports, is 100% the sport that would, in the middle of an upswing, you got the best players in the game. We just talked about them on part 1, which everybody should go check out. Posted it, I don't know when it was on your feed exactly, but mine, it was on Thursday. Whatever, go check it out. It's really great. We were just talking about, like, some of the best players in the game are also the youngest. That's crazy. That's a really good sign. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if baseball flounders this. And somehow a month into the season we've missed. Maybe even a month and a half. And then all of a sudden we're like, what the heck? Where's baseball? And then our attention drifts elsewhere. Maybe the caps melted. Maybe a new movie came out or whatever and we just stopped caring. So it would not surprise me if baseball does not figure this out because owners are a bit greedy and baseball players and the owners have been combating each other forever. Like this, there has been a big lockout before that. The viewership I think went down by 40% the last time there was a major lockout in baseball because they missed a whole time. So
okay, so I want to hit on this. So my grandfather stopped watching. Okay, so this year I went to a Nats game with my grandfather, my dad, myself went to the game, and my grandfather stopped watching because and he cites it always because the strike. Now. The strike sounds like it's a player's fault, right? But that's we know it's not true, right? The strike is the players saying, no, we're not going to put up with this anymore. All right? And always know this. The players in just about every single sport except for the NBA and still even the NBA are on the short side of the stick. Always. Go look at the most rich league in the world, the NFL, and look at what the players get paid. Look at what guys. I mean, that league makes the most money. Look what those guys off the street make. Right. That's why guaranteed money is always so important. But I digress here. So, that doesn't just affect my grandfather, right? His son, my dad, his baseball watching gets impacted by whether his dad is watching or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if his dad is not watching because the team is on strike, he will not. But also, same time, some of my dad's most fond memories are going to baseball games. He used to go to Reds games. He lives in Southwest Virginia. They used to take a bus from the YMCA and go stay at a YMCA in Cincinnati and go see the big red machine plates, and he's very affectionate for it. And so, like, baseball can still have a niche. They can still be meaningful to people.
Mm-hmm.
They, like you talked about, though, always seem to kick themselves like in the crotch area, which is impossible to do, but they seem to find a way to kick themselves in the crotch area every single time. And so this is where it's like, don't fumble the ball. Last season, look, this is from an NL East guy. Last season was great. The Braves winning was fun. It was compelling. That place went ape, you know what, crazy. Seeing them win the World Series. Look, do I root for the Braves? No. But do I enjoy seeing their fans? Even now, Braves fans are still on Twitter being like, hey, just a reminder, this long ago, the Braves won a World Series.
People being hyped makes you
That's
hyped,
baseball stuff. That's good. Mm-hmm. This is January, all right? And the good thing when the Falcons suck. Actually, I think the Falcons were good. They wouldn't even care. Until Trae Young plays on Christmas Day against the Knicks, I think they're still focused on baseball. So what I'm saying, the whole point of this is like that stuff, they've got momentum. And they've got young stars. They've got Tatis. They've got Soto, who slides and grabs. I mentioned the crotch before. A lot of crotch heavy here, but grabs his crotch area and stares at pitchers right after, which is hilarious to see them all react. Be like, "What is this kid? What's this kid doing?
Yeah, what's he doing?
What's he trying to do here? They've got. I mean, Mike Trout, who I think everybody appreciates now because the league was like, wish he was more marketable, and he's like, I don't really care. I'm going to keep doing me. Love that. Shohei, who's like just.
A god.
When Stephen A. Smith was like, I wish he spoke English.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody's like, who cares? This guy just hits tanks and pitches. Who cares? We love him. I have a friend here in Richmond, 2 friends actually, who have Shohei jerseys. So you tell me about he needs to speak English, yes or no. They got a bunch of young stars right now. They've got it moving. Do not fumble this rock. Oh, the glasses are gone now too. Don't fumble the rock, baseball. You're on fire right now. You're in fuego. The Braves are people are excited. Shohei's hitting moonshots. Stephen A. saying dumb stuff. We're like, no. You're wrong. All right? Keep it rolling. The one way you could just absolutely dig your own grave or just fumble the rock we talked about.
Yeah.
A work stoppage. Because number one thing I'm worried about, Javi, is the injuries. We saw it in 2020. These guys, particularly pitchers, creatures of habit, right? Mm-hmm. So if you throw them off, and they do their own ramping up to the ramping up, right? There's preparation before you go to pitchers and catchers reporting about throwing the ball and doing all those kinds of things. If you knock off that rhythm, you are endangering yourself again. And think about how many young guys we had pitching in a 60-game season. In a 60-game season, Garrett Crochet was up pitching. I mean, I'm sure the Pirates have a bunch of guys pitching as well, too. That's not optimal. That's not where these guys... Luis Garcia was 20 years old at second base playing for the Nationals. That's not optimal. It was fun. It was cool to see. That was because those guys were like, wait, we lost our ramp-up period. Oh, we're playing now? Okay. You have a chance to stop that. You have to stop it, or else the game, I promise you, it will suffer.
I mean, you nailed it. You hit the nail right on the button. You hit the nail right on the whatever.
Again.
Glasses are back. The glasses are back. The beast has been brought back. He's been contained.
Fired up.
That's the thing. It's like you mentioned it right with the Ohtani thing, with all this stuff. Like the only thing they've maybe done is like the Negro League stats. Like finally, like taking these things into account. That's like one of the only things I could think of. You have the whole providing housing and stuff, but just like in terms of growing your sport, baseball, I mean, everybody knows this. People who don't know baseball know that they're so bad at marketing their players, and that's what's really been unfortunate. I mean, literally as soon as recess 2020, we were still having conversations about unwritten rules. We probably had them this year that I can't remember right now. I think Castellanos, when he did the flex thing, which happens literally every night in the NBA.
Right? Was that last year?
That was the 2020.
Yeah.
You have the what's it called? And it's so funny because you can tell that there's some people in baseball that want it to change. Like, there's just little things you can see, like with MLB Cut 4, the social stuff that they do. So you can tell there are fans that are like, dude, I got an idea. I want Castellanos to literally flex and throw his bat into the stall every time. Like, do everything you want. And I want the pitchers to do the same thing too. There are definitely people like that, but unfortunately it's very pervasive in that culture of baseball, whether it be players too, by the way, or pitchers or managers or whatever, that it's still kind of messed up. And there's so many other areas. It's just like, I mean, we're still fighting about the DH. This is still a thing we do.
So stupid.
We're still and here's the thing, fighting about this.
I mean, and here's the thing: is the most prevalent moment in the NL this year. I think about this was when that reliever, I forget the guy's name, hit the grand slam off Scherzer. Right? And it's like,
Dano Camarena.
Right? Wow, what a moment! Guess what? How about you put a professional hitter in that spot? All right, like, God forbid. It would create an extra job for somebody.
Exactly. It's not an original thought, what I'm about to say, but it is true. Right after Bartolo did it, that was it. It's never going to get better than when Bartolo hit the home run. It took him like,
and what was the joke
longer
about
than it would have taken
right?
me to ride around the bases, by the way.
Well,
which is astounding.
So I'll do this. Part of the Mets radio broadcast, their intro a few years ago was, they're timing Cologne to second with a sundial. You know why? He doesn't care. He doesn't care about hitting. Dude, Taijuan Walker this year, to protect one of his shoulders, went up to the plate and just sat and watched pitches against the Nationals. He struck out like 3 times in one game because he had a shoulder injury. And they're like, dude, or shoulder or elbow, just sit there. We can't risk it.
What are we doing? Now bringing this stuff up too?
It's stuff like that. Oh, sorry, what'd you say? I missed that.
Oh no! Wait, Glass now was sticky stuff. Never mind. Move up. That was a totally different thing.
But like, that's stuff. Like, it's why are we doing this? World Series, 2 guys on. Here comes
exactly
Zach Greinke.
Exactly. It's fun every now and then, but like in the totality of the season, like
Max Scherzer
was it
breaks
fun?
his nose in batting practice.
Yes. Now, granted, he's a madman, and
but what do they? Look at that contract. One of the best in baseball history, right?
Yeah.
What do they pay him to do?
Pay him to pitch.
Not to hit. Not to hit. I played baseball with a kid in high school who ended up going to pitch for NC State. You know what we weren't concerned about in high school? Him hitting. Because there's a DH in high school too. What are we doing?
And then it's just like, with all that said, like, don't get me wrong. It's fun when it's like, oh, Jacob deGrom for the first month and a half, he literally drove in more runs than allowed them. Yes, but you know what's really fun? Having Franmil Reyes. You know what's really fun? Having these extra guys that, and also, and Josh, this is the thing that I've been hammering home. It makes other parts of baseball more fun when you add the DH. It makes team building more fun because all of a sudden, you're like, oh, we have an extra position. Tatis, maybe with that injury last year, let's just have him bat DH this year.
And older guys become more available for you. Nelson Cruz, perfect example.
Nelson Cruz.
The trade deadline this year for the Mets.
The trade deadline gets 10 times better because the 16 teams, or 15 teams, aren't all of a sudden cut out, right? So that's what I think people also, aside from it literally not being a better product and people not realizing that, I think like the best OPS for a pitcher ever is like 529, something like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not good. That is, you would not be in the major leagues. You'd not even make Double-A if you did that. That's the thing. But on top of that, it's also, you know how much more fun it is that Nelson Cruz can now be on more teams?
I agree. Kyle Schwarber seems more appealing now, and he was really good this year. Like, here's the thing: play him outfield some, and that's how I think it works. You're not going to have a guy who's DHing 162, right? It's going to be kind of like, for most teams at least, combination of guys, more guys, opportunities.
Ortiz, but he was 45.
Right. Goes to your point of team building, though, right? For most teams, it's going to be more guys, more opportunities in different spots here. The part that the people bother me, it's like, I love this strategy. Hey, middle finger to your strategy. Guess what? You know what baseball is? It's entertainment. You know what entertainment is? It's a product. Okay? You know what doesn't help the product? Oh, here comes Patrick Corbin. 2 guys are on base. Go get some peanuts now and beer. Because guess what's going to happen? He's going to strike out.
What's the strategy? So the strategy is, if he's been pitching well, you don't pitch hit for him. And if you have people on base, then he hits for a bunt. Like, what's the strategy? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it's like you
our
have two
run can't go to
options.
3 because he's been pitching too well today,
It's
right?
not
Oh,
strategy.
we're up 2-1 right now. We got 2 guys on base, but Patrick's been pitching so well that we got to let him swing the hose and strike
The
out.
strategy is every at bat. Every at bat
Yeah,
is strategic. What do you throw pitchers? That's where you get your strategy from. I know it
right.
doesn't always seem like
Yes,
that, but that's what it
yes,
is. I mean, it's
yes.
just it makes no sense. They need to add the DH. Do you think we should take a quick break before we get
Yeah,
into my next thing
I
about
was actually
rules?
about to say, you and I are the same wavelength. Actually, about to say that.
Go for it.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Go to built.com today. It's built.com. The NCAA tried to come at Built and be like, hey, look, this thing going on at BYU is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong. They checked it out beforehand. They gave
Mm-hmm.
kids at BYU who were walk-on scholarships because they're that great. And
Heck yeah.
they've got delicious bars that they send
Yes,
us all the
sir.
time that I love eating. The puffs are always delicious.
Mm-hmm.
The Built Goes and the Built Boosts, I really enjoy their lemon lime. I think it was the Built
Yeah.
Go.
Mm-hmm.
You put in the water, delicious.
Yeah.
The
I was
apple,
shocked. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, Built Bar. You surprised me with those.
the
I'm
apple
just used to
pomegranate,
protein bars, and all of a
low
sudden
key
I was like,
decent. A
oh my
pomegranate
god.
apple, I think it was
Yeah.
too, is
Mm-hmm.
pretty
I'm
decent
gonna go have one right
as
after we
well.
finish recording.
You should,
Thank you
yes,
for
you
reminding me.
should. Promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15, 15% off now on Built Bars, on Built Go, on Built Boost, right now at built.com. All right, but kind of back to the question here. Do you think this lockout ends? And do we get what we need? Because the arbitration stuff's got to get fixed. Like, this is the problem right here.
Yeah.
Think about NBA, right? I both like basketball as well. Guys are on their second or third contracts by the
Yeah.
time that MLB players are like, now I'm a free agent. Right
Yeah.
now I can sign my contract. Now there are
Mm-hmm.
exceptions, right? Tatis is an exception, but that's so limited. A
Mm-hmm.
majority of NBA players who get drafted, first rounder guys, are signing second contracts at 23, signing
Yeah.
third or fourth contracts at 27, 28. And by
Mm-hmm.
the time they're in their early 30s, they're set and they're in a good position. In baseball, it's like, hey, you basically get one shot at this, one or two shots, depending on who you are. But for that big payday, for that big deal, it's not like that. To me, they got to figure out the arbitration
Yeah.
deadlines and make sure those guys get paid a bit earlier, although it's going to be tough to do.
It's like one of my like dream Wonderland scenarios, and I know understand there's a lot of reasons why this wouldn't happen, but like for me, it's always been the years. The money doesn't mean anything, guys. Like it's just these people are billionaires.
Yes.
Like it's fine. For me, it's always been years, and like I'm gonna say something. Will it get me canceled by Padres fans? Yeah, probably. Was I amped out of my mind when Tatis signed the 14-year deal? Of course. I loved it. This is great for the Padres. This is exciting. But then in terms of if you're not a Padres fan, I wonder where it's like, do we miss out on potential, like, everybody talks about the NBA free agency, this frenzy of everyone being like, oh my God, where is he going? I wish that we lived in a world where in baseball that the money was still the same. I know you can't do that because players also don't want to do this either. They want the security long term. I get that. I'm just saying for Wonderland stuff that imagine if it was like 5-year deals was like the max and it's 5-year 280
Right.
whatever, like the NBA style. That would be
Right.
fun because then it's like all the time we're like, oh my God. But what, and then you might create more drama. Where does this guy go? Where does this guy go? I get that there are a little, because a lot of players, they're like, well, we've seen people in baseball that they have 2 good years and they fall off, so they want those long
And
deals. I
we
get
have
it,
that.
but
It slows down free agency, right? Because
yeah,
that short term stuff actually keeps more teams involved.
yeah,
Because when you open it up to long term stuff, how many teams like, okay, we can't go yes to this because it's a 7. This guy at the minimum wants 7 years,
hmm
right? When you talk about a 5-year deal, a 4-year deal in that range, Javi, you're talking about things that are more tenable because it doesn't affect them for the next decade
yeah,
or
exactly.
nearly a decade of their franchise. It's less than that. And in the NBA, it's only half of that, right? And you're
hmm
even seeing the NBA now, guys are signing shorter term deals because they want more agency. And I
hmm
don't think that's lost on MLB players. But the problem is the only option they have to get paid
Because
is the
arbitration,
long
yeah,
term deal. It's
yeah,
arbitration to those long term deals, right? There's no Juan Soto's not doing a Kevin Durant type deal, right?
yeah,
He's not
yeah,
doing a LeBron 1 for 40, 1 for 35. He's not doing that because the way this sport works is I grab as much money as I can. That's why Tatis signed his deal when he did.
hmm And it's like, don't get me wrong, and I also talked about this with the Locked On Rays host, Ulysses Sembrano. Talked about this. I wish that teams were like the Rays. And here's what I mean by that. Not in terms of the amount of money they spend,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of this idea of like next man up. All right, we're gonna find, go out there, get your money, we're good or whatever. But this guy gets paid, or we trade them, whatever, and then we bring in a new face. We bring in Shane Baz, and now Wander Franco's here. But pretend that it's free agents. I like the idea, man. I feel like baseball could be so much more fun. Or this is all a moot point, and it's like, well, then go watch the NBA. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what some people would tell me. They'd
Well,
be like,
I
well,
understand
then
what you're
that's what
saying.
the
The
NBA is
problem
for.
is not every team is just. It's so clear. Like, think about how developmental they are as a franchise, and apply that almost to front office. Right? They seem to develop interns into to stud front office. It's almost like their players mirror their front office guys. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody seems to have an eye for talent in that franchise. I understand what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and also it's not like. With the Rays, my big complaint is like, hey, why guys go for the kill? Like, you had to trade a
go
player
for the kill, 100%.
My issue with the Rays was it's like, guys, you traded somebody so you could bring on Nelson Cruz. What if you didn't do that? What if you just said we can have it all, right? What if we're just Pac-Man and we eat it all up? How about we just do that? That's why I wish the Rays would do. But I do think it's like, look, if you shorten the, if it was more like NBA free agency, right? I mean, if the max amount of years that you give somebody was 5, guys would be getting signed. So let's just say you kept a similar arbitration schedule. Guys would be getting signed a lot earlier, right?
Yeah.
We're not even going to let this guy play out arbitration because if he does, he might see it as us slighting him, right? If Tatis thinks that we're letting him play out arbitration because we're going to be cheap here, he might say, F you guys. As soon as I'm free agent, I'm leaving because somebody else will give you that money and you guys didn't give it to me when you could have earlier. You could have locked me up, could have had me earlier on, but you guys wanted to keep paying me the arbitration rate and didn't want to give it to me, right? So I think it would shorten up the process. I think if you kind of went to those shorter term contracts, that's kind of how it would factor in. But yeah, they got to figure that out because seeing guys at arbitration at 30 years old who are pitch like, the Nats have some of those guys, the Padres too. Like these guys are 30 years old, right? Mason Thompson, who the Nationals got from the Padres this year, 23, 24 years old. If he was an NBA and he's an effective major league player, if he was an NBA player, he'd be on a 4-year, $40 million contract right now.
Yeah.
For that kind of play.
I mean, that's the thing, right? And you make a good point about Tampa. One of the things I've always said about this is like a lot of people, they praise Tampa. First of all, they haven't won a World Series. So like before we put them in the S tier of organizations, can you win one? Like just one? The Royals won one before you did? But it is true that I think one of the negatives is that a lot of those teams aren't like the Rays, though. The Rays do work it. They have an incredible eye for talent, like you said. But most of these other teams that aren't spending money, Cleveland, since they made the World Series, I swear has only downplayed.
Bums.
They're like, we made it great. Let's not even improve the team. All they've done is trade away guys like slowly every year. Who knows if it works out for them? But my problem is like, why aren't you playing for the now? Like, why wasn't your instinct then? After the World Series in 2020, why isn't the Rays thing like, George Springer's coming over or whatever? Will it work? I'm not saying it will guaranteed work. I'm just saying that it's like baseball's the only sport where people literally make the World Series, go far in the playoffs, have a great season, and then they decide not to buy more into the next season. It's like the only sport where people do. It's the only sport. Like I don't even know if they do that in soccer. Maybe hockey they do it. I don't know, but it's the only one where people are like, I don't know, man. We made the World Series. I think we need to trade Corey Kluber now. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't. It's so weird how this sport works, and that's why it's so maddening. I don't know exactly how you fix it, but yeah, I mean, they got to figure that sort of stuff out. We already talked about the DH thing.
The Players Association can be pretty bad too at times. So that's on there.
Yeah.
All right, one more word from our sponsors, so we'll get out of here. Today's show brought to you by BetOnline.ag. Our friends at BetOnline.ag have the best odds, news, scores, bonuses, deals that you can find. Whether it's Formula One, MLB, NBA, college hoops, NFL, college football, bowl season, Vegas casino games, BetOnline.ag has got you covered. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, locked on. Receive that 50% deposit bonus today. Deposit $100. Give an extra $50 to play with today at BetOnline.ag. Go and sign up right now. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Javi, where can people find you and your work?
They can find me at Javapeno, JAVIIPENO on Twitter, and at LO_Padres for the Twitter account for the show. You can catch me in terms of baseball stuff at justbaseball.com. That's where I write about a bunch of baseball stuff. Going to be getting weird in the off-season / lockout season. Fictional players, all that stuff. I also write about pop culture and entertainment a whole bunch. Places like Inverse, soon to be Thrillist, hopefully, if my piece didn't stink. A bunch of other places like Nerdist write about movies and stuff because, it is the end of the season. Josh, it is end of. We're getting to that point where we're going to pretend that Being the Ricardo should be nominated for Best Picture, but that's a whole nother tangent.
Wow. Okay.
Look, all I'm saying is this: the idea of what an Oscar movie is, I get it. You want high quality.
Hey, Green Book, man, Green Book, right?
Jesus, this is my problem because some people will tell you they're like, well. And I like some of these movies too. I thought Roma was fantastic. But people are like, dude, but Spider-Verse it shouldn't be that. Okay, but Green Book should be? Here's my line. Stop overlooking movies that opt for humor instead of hubris. You know what I'm saying? That's my big problem with the Oscars.
Well said.
But and the last thing I will ask you before we close this thing out, quick things.
I have to go.
Did you like Ghost Runner on second in the doubleheader rule this year? Didn't get a chance to talk about that. Yeah. You did? You were in?
Yeah.
You're in? I was in too. I was like, what? It makes 10 games different a year.
We gotta, it's in life, we can't be sitting there all night. There's no 17 innings, stuff like that.
Exactly.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_. You can find the show at LO_Nationals. You can find us on YouTube, wherever you guys get your podcasts as well. Javi, it was a pleasure, my friend.
It was a blast, sir. Can't wait to do it again because MLB is probably going to lose 3 months of its season. So we'll have to come up more with content. But yeah, can't wait, man.